Hello, today we are going to talk about IPv6 addressing. Now what you see here on the board is that I've written a very long string of hexadecimal numbers. This is a full IPv6 address. Now we're going to kind of dissect it and look at the parts. Now this is, what we see here is this is the composition of 8 specific things, and these 8 things are called hextets. Each hextet, and I'm going to write this up here, a hextet is composed of 4 values. Each one of the 4 values can be arranged from 0 to 15. Just like in hexadecimal counting, any number from 10 to 15 is represented by a letter, A through F. Now, in this case, what we're looking at is an IP address that has been given. It's an IPv6 address, and it is in a long form. There are going to be some rules we can use to abbreviate this address, and I'm going to talk about those. But also talk about IPv6 addressing in general is that the purpose of the IPv6 addressing was to eliminate the shortfall of IPv4 addresses. If we look at the possible number of IPv6 addresses, there are in the neighborhood of 340 undecillion IP addresses. Now that's a number that's probably too large to write on this board. But the premise here is that each value represents a possible pair of 16. So this is 128 bits long, whereas our IPv4 address is composed of 4 8-bit segments totaling 32 bits. This particular address is composed of 8 16-bit segments totaling 128 bits. So I'm going to give you some ideas or some rules of how we can shorten this address and tell you some things that we can do to make it easier to read. The first thing we'll notice is that we can take an address and we can eliminate multiple sets of zeros. So I can cross these out, and what I will do is I will replace them with 2 colons. I can also eliminate leading zeros. So if I use those 2 rules, I'm going to equal a shorter address. Now that trailing 0 gets to stay. I'm going to eliminate the leading 0. I'm going to put 2 colons here because I've crossed out a number of zeros, including these first 3, and I'm going to end in a 1. Now that is a full abbreviated IPv6 address. Notice how I used a lot less information to communicate the same thing. Now there's a caveat on the rule of eliminating multiple spans of zeros, and that is that you can only do it once in the string. So if I had a set of zeros up here, instead of 23ED, if it was all zeros, I would have to choose between eliminating this set of zeros or eliminating this set of zeros. Now, obviously, I'm going to choose the longer path that creates a shorter address. Either one is fine. The computer understands the rules. So one thing to know about IPv6 addressing is in the majority of cases, IPv6 addresses are delivered automatically. So that presents itself a problem that already has a solution in most cases. Those addresses are delivered from a server, where the server keeps track of them. So you don't have to keep track of all the IPv6 addresses. In general, also, if you do have to deliver IPv6 addresses, there's a specific form called a linked local address. A linked local address is a way to give a short version of a link local, of an address on an interface. In this case, we're going to make it a very simple address, and it may be FE80:1. That's just a specific one. It's special. It's called a link local. We can have many of these addresses as long as they're unique. So FE82, 3, 4, and we can continue to use that full hextet on the local segment. This is creating a local, like a LAN. So I can give all my computers on a LAN an address that's small like this, and that I don't have to worry about having a large address for the machine. Now, these particular IPv6 addresses are globally unique. So in most cases, now I've represented here an address that's 128 bits long, but in most cases, an ISP or another provider of an IPv6 address is going to give you a block that is much, much smaller. They're going to allow you to have a small segment of IPv6 addresses on your own. There are so many addresses that we will literally never run out of them. So that is just a quick example of IPv6 addressing. I've demonstrated the full address, shown you some rules you can use to shorten the address, and given you special circumstances like link local addresses. There's also multicast IPv6 addresses that we won't go into here. But this has been an overview, and there may be other videos in the series on IPv6 addressing. But thank you for watching.